Been a long week. It's been full of a very unique drama. If you're a washed-up Mandalorian actress on Mayan Space or Only Clans, you might have mentioned something about someone stealing someone's success from somebody else. So obviously, she must be talking about this week's Top Zen, top 10 show stealers in movies and TV. Yes, from beta to alpha, these characters climb from the fringe of popularity to becoming household names. The story wasn't about them until it was about them. And we're all better off for it. So with that said, let's get right into number 10 with our countdown. Tommy Oliver, a.k.a. the Green Ranger / White Ranger from the Power Rangers. Yes, Power Ranger legend Tommy was supposed to only appear in the first season as a small character, but fans loved him so much that he eventually became a main star, and he kept coming back for more versions of the show. He hasn't stopped showing up, actually. He still shows up at conventions, probably during Corona, too. I mean, damn it, I've seen Tommy at every fucking convention. The guy has more signature boosts than Stan Lee did when he was alive.
Fucking loves being Tommy, bro. Like
he's still just still milking that for absolutely all of its worth. Originally the Green Ranger, he later appeared as the super cool White Ranger, and he went on to appear in also Alien Rangers, Zeo, Turbo, Dino, Thunder, all the different Power Rangers. At this point, he was a revered legendary Power Ranger veteran by the latest recruits. He's also in Wild Force, SPD, Super Mega Force. We're not making these names up, by the way. These are
all real
names.
Power Rangers shows.
They're all real names. And actor Jason David Frank, I remember, yes, his name was a Jason. He's got a very Jason personality. If you've seen him before too, like, really short hair, probably wears Affliction t-shirts kind of thing. Hasn't surprised. He's reprised the role every single time Tommy has come up to bat. Like
he does it for free now.
He just loves this character, and we'll never give him up.
He is, yeah. Like, and this sucks because I remember as a kid, I like the Red Ranger. Jason was my favorite, and I just remember being so petty or like so bitter and hating on Tommy because he took the spotlight from Jason. But after a while, I had to give him his respect. He beat everybody, all the Rangers with a flute.
Yeah,
stole their Megazord.
Green was my favorite color. It still is, right? And so it's just one of those where, like, as a kid, I went with like green's my favorite, and so but then like as I grew up with the show, watching it, he just stayed a constant badass throughout the entire show, and eventually became the White Ranger, which was fucking awesome. You know, and like, so it's just one of those where, like,
I think he was like red, black. He was like almost
Tommy's
all the colors. I think.
Like he's been all of them, I think. Like,
all the different colors. He's the Rainbow Ranger.
And it's crazy. He was only supposed to be in the first season. So fun fact, never knew that.
True story. Geeklife gets its main Geeklife green from the Green Ranger.
There you go.
No, that's just complete bullshit. I just made that up, but I thought it was fun.
You heard it here first.
You heard it here first. It's certainly not as fun as number 9 on our countdown, The Fonz from Happy Days. Tell us why The Fonz makes this countdown, Kev.
Hey, Fonzie proves what would have happened if you had too much of a good thing, like literally jumping the shark. But long before that, Henry Winkler, RIP, was cast at the last minute as a leather jacket wearing hero, as original star Mickey Dolenz from the Monkees was too tall. Starting life as a fringe character, it didn't take long for him to become the main focus of the entire series. It got to the point that at one stage, ABC wanted to change the title to Fonzie's Happy Days. We've all done like the iconic A, right? Like I only associate Happy Days with the Fonz. I don't know any other characters.
Yeah.
Henry Winkler's still alive. I had to Google that. You said RIP, and I was like, Winkler
died?
Oh,
shit. Sorry, Henry Winkler. I didn't mean to.
He's just old.
I didn't mean to throw you out there. Yeah, he's old. Sorry.
I always think of Fonz. Someone said he's on Barry. He's the acting coach on Barry. He does a phenomenal job on Barry too. But always, dude, the coach from The Waterboy.
Yes.
Like, dude, I always like that's one of his iconic roles in my opinion. Yeah. Just crushed it. Love the Fonz too, though. I never knew the Fonz was supposed to just be a side character too. That's another one that you kind of like, holy shit, like definitely stole the show. The Fonz is the most memorable character from Happy Days.
Absolutely. But while those characters steal the show, this next character will probably fist fight you for the show drunkenly at a baseball game. Randy Marsh comes in at number 8 on our countdown from South Park. Tell us why Randy Marsh is number 8 on our top 10 show stealers.
Cafeteria fringe. In the early days of South Park, Randy was merely a background character who didn't say much and wasn't even established as Stan's dad early on. However, as the creators Trey Parker and Matt Stone got older and started to identify more with the adults of South Park than the kids, Randy slowly started to elevate into one of the main characters of the show. Now he's essentially the most prominent adult in the show and one of the funniest by far, in my opinion, and probably everyone else's. Am I right? From cock magic to secretly being Lord to fighting rival dads shirtless, he's everywhere. And to think he's technically still a geologist. The family's moved to Tennessee.
Not anymore.
Farms. Yeah, I know. Now he's not.
Yeah.
I mean, but he technically is an college-educated geologist. Like this guy,
He is, yeah.
Forget about that. Because
He's got a geology degree somewhere.
The family's move to Tegrity Farms has made it even more has made Randy an even bigger focal point. The show's last pandemic special was essentially just a full Randy special. In more ways than one. The same also applies to Sweet Little Butters, who was once a mute minor character who eventually became one of the most important and probably beloved characters on the show. I know as I've gotten older, I too have really gravitated towards Randy as a character, and like it's just everything that he does is hilarious to me. They can't miss. Dodd, I thought this was America. What do you think?
Randy's a classic, man. I mean, the pandemic special, it's funny because the whole story is about, something to get us through these hard times. And that's kind of exactly what the pandemic special ended up being. So he's definitely a show stealer for sure. This whole last season, I think, Randy is the A plot for most of it. He's the story that's going on with the kids is the B plot.
I'm just gonna get a little cancer, Sharon. Just a little cancer.
Just a little cancer. He's very quotable, and definitely one of the underrated characters on the show, and a show full of show stealers, for sure. But while Randy is tacky, he's not quite as tacky, like, infomercial tacky as number 7 in our countdown, Saul Goodman from Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. That's right. Saul Goodman may sound like a made-up name from an infomercial, and that's because it's intended to. Bob Odenkirk brings to life this shitty lawyer in the best way possible. He's relatable, he's funny, he's sleazy, and he's definitely a show stealer in a show full of show stealers as well. Jesse Pinkman came close in the Breaking Bad franchise, but you don't see him making his own series now, do you? Better Call Saul is set to produce its 6th and final season as soon as the pandemic begins to slow down, which would officially make it 1 season longer than Breaking Bad. So It's undeniably that Better Call Saul is a pretty impressive show stealer. And honestly, just a little side note here, Bob Odenkirk's a great guy. I actually met him one time down here in Austin. It was a South by Southwest back when we used to have those. And it was at a bar. There was a bunch of celebrities that night. Like if you go like the week before South by Southwest, that's the best time to actually see celebrities. I went to watch Elijah Wood DJ that night, and that's when I met Bob Odenkirk, and I ran into the guy from Reno 911, the New Boots Goofin', that guy. Yeah, I took a picture with him that whole night. That's just one night. But it was a lot of fun, and he's a really great guy. I bought him a shot, and he took it with me, and he was just like, he's just as awkward and like average, ordinary human, like he was just a dude. If I didn't know that it was Bob Odenkirk, then no one would have. He was not. He was certainly not a douche.
They're people too.
Right. Well, I mean, like the thing is that usually people get starstruck and then like they're a douchebag. They're someone.
No,
Bob Odenkirk
100%.
was not.
And this dude's had a highly successful career. He probably gets approached by fans all the time, like one of those things. But yeah, no, he definitely like, yeah, his goodness seems to come through in characters even. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if that's like, obviously there's celebrities that we thought were good that ended up being pieces of shit. But like that guy, he's always seemed to be a pretty good guy in my opinion.
Yeah. Yes. But that's it for number 7 on our countdown. Number 6 on our countdown has been breaking more than just Breaking Bad records. They've been breaking Twitch stream records recently. Miles Morales comes in at number 6 on our countdown. Tell us why Miles Morales is so highly ranked on our top 10 show stealers.
The original concept of a Black Spider-Man was first discussed a few months before the November 2008 election of Barack Obama as president of the U.S. Marvel Comics then editor-in-chief Axel Alonso described the catalyst when we were planning Ultimatum when we realized we were standing at the brink of America electing its first African-American president, and we acknowledged that maybe it's time to take a good look at one of our icons. They ended up scrapping it and I think it was in 2011 because they hadn't developed the story, but ultimately came back to sort of recreate. Sorry, they ended up scrapping it towards 2009. They ended up sort of redeveloping it in 2011 with the storyline of Death of Spider-Man and the character Miles Morales was created. Although Morales is the first Black Spider-Man, he marks the second time a Latino character has taken the Spider identity. Miguel O'Hara, who is half Mexican descent and was the character in the 1990 series Spider-Man 2099. I think people really love this character. One, he resonates with the younger audience. He's classic underdog story. He's more inclusive because he's Black. Like you don't have too many sort of heroes like this other than, someone that wears the hood or the mask of like a recognizable historic icon like Spider-Man. Yeah. Also, like he's snarty and witty like Peter Parker, but he has his own sort of like swagger to it. His shoe game and Spidey drip is impeccable. Are you kidding me? Like the origin story with the hoodie over the costume, like no one else. It's like a superhero like you haven't done before. He keeps his own personality while still being Spider-Man. I like that. And I think also, too, is he has other unique abilities that Spider-Man doesn't, like the ability to sort of turn invisible and do like what they call Venom Blast, which is basically this lightning electric charged ability that he shoots from his hands. Yeah. So, like Miles Morales, I think, and again, he sort of resonates with the 21st century generation. Peter Parker is always going to be great, but I think this Miles Morales speaks more towards sort of the way things are going just in culture in general.
Yeah. I mean, like, I'm even dude, I'm a chubby white guy who's like almost 30, and Miles Morales is still probably the Spider-Man that I feel like I can relate to more. Right. And I know that sounds, that may be bizarre, but it's like the old school Peter Parker, he was only a nerd because he was like smart and he can invent things. Like, it was like, oh, look at this fucking nerd over here that can write, like do stuff for all that, where Miles was more like, he was the nerd in like the 21st century way that like, he plays video games, a little awkward, he's kind of like, just the awkward teen in a way. And so like, cause I was never the type that was like, I always felt kind of like an outcast, but not in the fact that I can go do a bunch of fucking Goodwill Hunting style, like, mathematician bullshit. Right. Right. Yeah. And so like, I never, for some reason, Peter Parker was just a nerd cause he was smart. Like, and so anyway, but like, the Miles Morales, like kind of being like the loser, if you will, right? Like was something that was way more.
I don't even know if it was that. I feel like Miles Morales to me, it's like Spider-Man is different than Iron Man because Spider-Man is like your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man versus Iron Man, who's like the national hero who saves the world. In the same way, like, I feel like Miles Morales is such a great character and blends with in making such a great Spider-Man because Miles Morales is your friendly neighborhood kid first. Right.
Yeah.
Versus like Peter Parker, who tries to be that. And I think a lot of what you were saying, Jake, but like is a little bit unrelatable because he is that super genius kind of thing. And it's like, I wasn't like that. But, I could maybe relate to, the kid listening to music on the train with his hoodie on. Like I could, that feels a much more relatable than, maybe the dude doing, as you said on their Goodwill Hunting math on the chalkboard.
Which I think that's why Tom Holland's Spider-Man resonates with me too. They did a good job of that one, him being kind of a more modern loser. And so but the Miles and Tom Holland have been my favorite two Spider-Mans to date. Sorry, Gyllenhaal or whatever the fuck, whoever did that back in the day.
It's Tobey Maguire.
Maguire, I always get
Toby, but sure, Jake Gyllenhaal will take credit for it too.
I get my generic white actors mixed up all the time.
Yeah, Gyllenhaal's the one that has a sister. You got to just remember that part.
And Gyllenhaal's Mysterio too, right?
That's right. They're throwing
which
all
he did
kinds
a really good job on. Anyway,
he did. But not as good job as number 5 on our countdown, which is Carol fucking Baskin. Tell us why Carol Baskin makes number 5 on our countdown, Jake.
So the show might have been called Tiger King, but the Tiger Queen, Carol Baskin, stole the show. You know the story. Carol Baskin killed her husband, whacked him. You can't convince us that it didn't happen. She fed him to tigers. They snacking. What's happening? Carol Baskin. But while most of the documentary centered around Joe Exotic, this quarantine banger left everyone talking about Carol and if she really fed her husband to tigers. We'll never know, as his disappearance is still considered a cold case until late. And Carol is said to be getting her own movie starring SNL's Kate McKinnon. Which, whenever you got that kind of star power behind your character, you kind of won. Right? It's one of those where we all are kind of obsessed with, Joe Exotic and his craziness or whatever. But at the same time, no one can forget Carol Baskin. We all kind of forgot that dude that has that's obviously grooming young girls and had this weird kind of cult thing going for him, with the ponytail. But no one remembers that guy's name. We just remember the weird ponytail guy.
Yeah, but he was there. He had a lot of elements too. He had a lot of great storytelling elements.
Yeah. But it's Carol Baskin. She stole the show. We all love Carol Carol fucking Baskin, man. And it's funny that Kate McKinnon is going to be starring her in a movie, or at least that's what the rumors are saying, because it's just Carol went from being the side character in this Joe Exotic documentary to now she's the main character in her own story. She was even in Dancing with the Stars recently. Yeah. She's living her best life. But the real question is, Dodd, do you think she did it?
Is there a country song written about it? Can it be wrong at that point? Do I need to refer you to the case of Goodbye Earl?
That is true.
They're throwing a Dixie Chicks reference for you guys there. There you go. All right, moving right along so I can get some traction between me and that Dixie Chicks reference. Number 4 in our countdown is Steve Urkel from Family Matters. Never before has a character literally stolen the show off the actual main cast like Urkel. Believe it or not, guys, Family Matters is not about Urkel.
I know.
Jill White's.
I thought it was the Urkel show.
No, yeah. Jill White's geeky kid was meant to be a one-off character, but he quickly not only became the show's popular star, but eventually its main protagonist.
Did I do that?
Despite the fact that he wasn't even in the Winslow family. The show was all about Urkel after fans couldn't get enough of his thick eyeglasses, suspenders, cardigan sweaters, and high-pitched voice. Did I do that? Has become absolutely iconic, and Urkel has become the face of nerddom in and of itself. If I see people doing a nerd costume for Halloween, it's pretty much an Urkel parody. That's what it is usually, Is there anyone that rivals Urkel's status as the embodiment of the nerd, Kev?
Oh, absolutely not. That is the sort of iconoclast of nerds, if you will. It's Steve Urkel. I think I think there was a skit Key and Peele did that sort of best summarized what happened here, where Steve Urkel was meeting with the executive of Family Matters and basically just saying it's the Steve Urkel show now. It was taking over.
Yeah.
Because that's what happened. A lot of people forget about Carl and his son and the other son and his wife. Seeing like
Yeah.
like I even know Stefan, who was Steve Urkel's
Yeah, hell yeah. Stefan
his
was
alter ego.
Well, he was just Jaleel. He was just Jaleel White.
Jaleel White. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, he was just Jaleel White.
It just turned out that Jaleel was really good at playing Steve.
Yeah. But no, like it was. Like I remember watching this growing up, and it was Steve Urkel's show. Like it's weird how that happened. He just took. I don't think out of everyone on those. I don't. And we're gonna get to him, but I would argue he'd be put in number one because I cannot name really any characters outside of Steve Urkel and Carl.
From Family Matters. He got a few.
He completely stole that show. So literally stole that show right out from under the Winslows. It was supposed to be their show, and then it became the Steve Urkel show.
Yeah, it wasn't even a Winslow.
I know. He was the neighbor. Kid was the neighbor. It would have been like crazy. If Seinfeld would have said, like, okay, now it's the Kramer show. You know, what I mean? Kramer was a big part of Seinfeld, don't get me wrong, but it was still Jerry's show. And so, and it stayed Jerry's show throughout it. But, Kramer, had that same kind of, he'd burst through the door and, oh, what the fuck, Jerry? And so, he had that same effect because Family Matters, I'm remembering episodes in my head right now. Urkel would always burst into the kitchen door or something, and everybody would lose their fucking minds, right? Similar to, how Kramer entered. And, but yet Kramer didn't get his own spinoff. I mean, that could have been some of the off the air stuff that Kramer did to not get his own show, but Kramer didn't get his own it didn't become the Kramer show essentially. Whereas with this show, it definitely became Urkel's show.
And literally, I don't mean he just stole the show. Like everyone got excited when they saw him. They wrote plots around him. When he came, it wasn't just he made appearances and everyone tuned in. No. They stopped focusing on the Winslows and it just became the Steve Urkel story.
Yeah. That's very true. He pretty much dictated the direction of that show completely once he came in there. But number 3 on our countdown is someone who did a lot of cleaning up on Scrubs. The janitor makes number 3 on our countdown from Scrubs. Tell us why the janitor is so highly ranked on this countdown.
Yeah. Well, Dad, Neil Flynn's grumpy custodian may have appeared in every episode of the first season, but he wasn't meant to be such a prominent character at the beginning. Creator Bill Lawrence, he said, that had Scrubs been axed really early on, the character would have been revealed to be JD's mind all along. Hence why he's the only one who interacts with him at the start. But everyone on set and at home loved the janitor so much, he soon became a main cast member and one of the most hilarious stars of the show. He finally revealed his real name, Glenn Matthews, in the finale. Why did it take so long? Nobody asked. Yeah, I didn't watch too much of Scrubs. I watched the first season. I know. I do remember.
It's a classic, man.
I know. I do remember the janitor being sort of the sort of bright spot for me in that show. I mean, there were a lot, but that was the one. When I think of that show as someone who's not really watched it that much, other than JD, the janitor is someone that I just automatically pops in my head.
Yeah,
that's hilarious.
Love shows. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say it's hilarious that if it would have been axed, that the janitor would have just been a figment of JD's imagination the entire time. They had one of the best chemistry, in the show was between obviously JD and Turk. The guy love there was phenomenal, but then also JD and the janitor, that was their antics were a part of the show's long running kind of callbacks, jokes in a way, and so. It's just one of those where the janitor definitely I'm glad he became a staple of the show. There was a lot of really great jokes there, and I can't believe he was supposed to just be a figment.
Oh yeah, I mean, and that would have been played so well into the whole kind of plot line of Scrubs. I love shows like that kind of border on the line of they're not representing a complete view of sanity. Wilfred did that too. Wilfred was the main character was mentally unstable, and same thing with JD too. It's not that he's necessarily mentally unstable, but you go through all of the emotions with him and through his own thoughts. And I love shows that are like that. I love shows that play on that line. And the janitor tap danced on that line all the time. I think that he was a great great way to move the plot forward, and it became more than just a throwaway device to where he was like that scene where he reveals his name at the end is like a really, really big deal.
It is.
No one had ever known his name. And
you never know his name.
Yeah. And
but JD never asked for it either. That's what's always funny.
Right.
That's the joke there.
So it's an interesting one. But it's not quite the scruffy looking nerf herder that number 2 in our countdown is, who was an absolute show stealer. Probably, arguably the best show stealer from Star Wars. Han Solo. Tell us why Han Solo makes the countdown, Jake.
Yeah, in the original script, Han Solo is actually killed off as he and Princess Leia battle with the Empire. This was largely written to the script because Harrison Ford, who, if you didn't know, plays Han Solo, did not really care for the character. Initially, he wanted his character to be killed off so badly that he had even told producers he would only return to the third movie for Solo to die. Therefore, they ended up writing the script in this manner. With that being said, things did not end up that way. Somehow the script changed. Solo survived, and Luke, despite all his internal conflicts, continued to fight for the rebellion. This is a story that diehard Star Wars fans might already be familiar with. However, there is one thing that they may not know, which, as it's not widely circulated. The reason that Han Solo survived wasn't necessarily because George Lucas or Harrison Ford had a last-minute change of heart. The script was changed because Lucas was concerned that fewer toys would be sold if Han Solo was killed, and there were questions about Luke's allegiance to the rebellion. He thought toy sales would plummet, especially, without Ford's star power being, attached to it in the later episodes of the show, or the episodes of the series, as he didn't think that it would be interesting to purchase Han Solo action figures if the character died in the movie, which is kind of true. Not many people buy action figures of dead characters. One thing is for certain, this would have changed the entire trilogy and the movies afterwards. And not necessarily for the better. I think a lot of people really do like Han Solo. and I mean, I don't think that's a brave assessment.
I mean, he was just killed off one movie later.
Exactly.
Spoiler alert for those who haven't seen Force Awakening yet.
One movie later, but like 30, 40 years?
Yeah, sure.
But obviously every person has their own opinion. But many Star Wars fans are internally grateful that the script for Return of the Jedi was changed, regardless of the reason why it necessarily happened. Dodd, do you think the Star Wars universe would look a whole lot different without the scrappy smuggler in the mix?
I think it would look a lot different. I think that you wouldn't have hooked in the audience that you would have from the get-go. I mean, for sci-fi franchises, they really have to hook in a big, grandiose audience, and that's what Star Wars did. And Han Solo is definitely a part of that success. I mean, you wouldn't have the flying through the asteroids. You wouldn't have all the snark. You wouldn't have the who shot first. All of those things if you don't have Han Solo. Or you wouldn't have Chewbacca.
The I love you. And like
that was
apparently just Harrison Ford improv that, right? And so it's one of those where that's iconic. And so, Harrison Ford is Han Solo. And I'm glad that he wasn't necessarily killed off early in the series or as early as he wanted to be. He wanted to die in the first movie.
Right.
But I mean, his reasoning is pretty clear. He thought that, look at this universe around me. I'm supposed to be a human smuggler. These are fucking space wizards.
Yeah.
Like, what? I'm going to shoot them with a blaster? Come on.
Right.
But, he proves that there is power in being charismatic.
Yeah,
exactly.
I think he also sort of left the door open for spin-offs too, because it shows that you don't have to necessarily wield a lightsaber to be impactful in Star Wars.
That's true.
Rogue One and
Very
the Land of Mandalorian. So
yeah. He was the character that kind of really solidified that as well, especially in those first movies before Leia had really given any chance to shine as a strong character. But he didn't steal the show quite as much as number 1 in our countdown, which is the Queen Prince of Crime herself. That's not really her title, but anyways, Harley Quinzel. Harleen Quinzel used to be a name that was only found in the Pornhub browsers of very optimistic comic book simps, but now she's a DC icon. The Arkham Asylum psychiatrist created by Paul Dini in the 1992 series was simply a throwaway character to even the odds between Joker and the dynamic duo. But the Mad Doctor has become oh so much more. Harley has gone from a throwaway to a movie title headliner. She pulls properties up simply by having her mere presence. Suicide Squad, Birds of Prey. She hasn't headlined a movie fully herself, though Birds of Prey was very, very close to that.
It was the Harley Quinn movie.
It was pretty much. But she does have her own series out on HBO, which is more than can be said for her boyfriend. She's also bisexual, and her relationship with Ivy has earned her not only a bunch of representation points, but a hell of a whole lot of shippers. Just leave her, girl. You got a better thing going, okay? All right. Constantly rooting for her to make the right call. Harley is an incredible character at her core. When she is with the Joker, she is the embodiment of Stockholm Syndrome and meant to showcase the downsides of blind love. And when she isn't with the Joker, she is a symbol for the abolition of the patriarchy and the abolition of pretty much everything I said previously. There are a lot of dimensions to her, and the fact that there are a lot more dimensions to her other than the fact that she's hot and constantly makes anyone there's a lot more other dimensions to her other than the fact that she's hot and constantly makes people anyone who's attracted to women question whether or not they have a clown fetish. Joker may be the clown prince of crime, but Harley Quinn is definitely the queen of stealing the show. I mean, honestly, can you think of any like throwaway Harley Quinn cameos? Like, I can't really think of one. There's that one in Arrow where it's not, you don't even see her, you just hear her voice.
Oh yeah, the Easter egg.
Easter egg. But other than that, like, I can't think of a time where she appears in a show and the show doesn't become a Harley Quinn show. Can you guys think of any examples?
And even that, where they heard her voice, like the fact that they were episodes about Suicide Squad, and the shows how impactful they had. Like they had to mention her in some way, like
Yeah. No, and to think that she was started off as just kind of like a throwaway, like comic character that was just supposed to be, she was a well written out, like kind of like side character for Joker. Yeah. Like they were just like a well-designed side character for Joker is what I should say, not well written out, because they didn't really like have like the whole Harley Quinzel psychology backstory at first, and then they saw the popularity of the character and they ran with it, and kudos to them, because this is one of those where like she was made, I believe, for the Batman animated series. And it's not even the comics really, and now she's a staple in DC Comics. One that had multiple movies, multiple shows. The Harley Quinn, the animated show right now, is probably one of my favorite animated shows of 2020 and of 2019, because it came out last year too. It's been back to back 2 years running one of Jake's favorite animated shows.
I feel like it came back quick for that second season, like real quick. Young Justice is looking at it, like lapping it, like, oh.
Yeah, but no, like Harley Quinn that's why she's number one on the list, is because like there's not many characters who go from just some kind of like written side character to being like a staple within the franchise. So
solid.
I agree.
Solid. That's why she's number one. Quick couple of honorable mentions: Charizard, Baby Yoda, Falco, Deadpool, Ridley and Towley, Mr. Hanky, just to name a few. Obviously, all these are great characters. We decided to stick with non-video game characters. That's why Charizard and Falco didn't get in the mix. But Baby Yoda, he was hard to not put up there with
definitely been
Han Solo. But we had a Solo.
I'm gonna say he didn't make it for me. Baby Yoda didn't, because he stole the show, but he was already written into the show. And as far as we know, his like the trajectory of that character hasn't changed just because of the popularity of the Baby Yoda, right? Like they haven't confirmed like, oh, we were actually gonna kill Baby Yoda, like one episode in. Like it kind of feels like the whole show was around the child and was supposed to be around the child, and so the fact that we loved him.
Didn't anticipate his popularity. Yeah.
Now they didn't anticipate the popularity, and that's true in the merch. But like, I don't think he really like had a change in the show. You know what I mean?
No.
Like the merch situation with Baby Yoda was really interesting, because they definitely did not they definitely underestimated the popularity of Baby Yoda because they didn't have the merging rights out at the right time, and there was a huge backlog. It was a huge high demand for Baby Yoda content, and nobody could supply it. And so if you were on Etsy and you could make, Baby Yoda figurines, you were making bank because no one could make anything like that right at that time or had the merging rights to do so. So that's just an interesting tidbit about Baby Yoda. But anyways, that is about it for our countdown. We've got a hell of a whole lot. We're about 45 minutes over